My name is Abigail. I'm 29 years old. And the afternoon Rosa called me, barely able to get my name out. I already knew something was wrong before she said a single clear word. The house has a sound when it's empty. Ours sounded expensive. The robotic vacuum kept tapping the upstairs hallway in those soft, stubborn little turns. The dryer downstairs was thumping through a load of white towels. The whole place smelled like lemon cleaner, warm cotton, and burnt coffee I had left too long on the warmer because I was trying to answer emails and pretend I was having a normal Thursday. Sunlight was pouring across the hardwood in long white bands. It hit the island, the white baseboards, the framed family photos Mark loved to straighten whenever anyone came over. Those pictures always looked warmer than we ever were. Outside, saw a landscaping truck rolled past the cul-de-sac. A dog barked 2 houses down. A leaf blower whined somewhere in the distance, then faded. I was standing at the kitchen counter with one hand around a chipped mug when my phone buzzed against the stone. Rosa. She cleaned for us every Thursday. She almost never called. If she needed anything, she texted one sentence and apologized twice. I answered on the second ring. Rosa? Breathing. That was all. Wet, uneven, held too tight breathing, like she was trying not to cry and losing the fight in pieces. Then a muffled sound. Then a swallowed sob. Then one broken little gasp of my name. Mrs. Abby, please. I straightened so fast the mug tipped over. Coffee splashed across my hand, and the counter and dripped onto the floor. It burned. I barely felt it. Yet the vacuum upstairs bumped into the wall again. Tap. For one strange second, that tiny sound felt obscene. Rosa, where are you? In your room, she sucked in air. I didn't mean to. I was changing the sheets and I found. Then she couldn't finish. My body moved before my brain caught up. I was already at the stairs, one hand sliding along the banister, socks slipping on polished wood, heart starting to hit too hard. Halfway up, I lowered my voice, not because I was calm, because she sounded like someone standing too close to an edge. I'm coming, don't touch anything else. When I reached our bedroom, Rosa was standing near the bench at the foot of the bed with both hands pressed over her mouth. The fitted sheet hung crooked off one corner. One of Mark's travel pillows was on the floor. The room smelled like lavender spray, dust, and those cedar sachets Mark bought because he liked saying they made the closet feel hotel level. Rosa turned toward me. Her eyes were so wide they barely looked like hers. I'm sorry, she whispered. I am so sorry. Then she pointed. At first, I only saw the closet door open wider than usual. Then I saw the black carry-on on the floor. Mark wasn't supposed to be home until Saturday. He was in Denver, or Phoenix, or Dallas. The cities changed. The tone never did. The bag was unzipped, and right on top of one of his pressed dress shirts was a silk blouse. Bright. Too bright. Not mine. Too narrow in the shoulders. Under it sat a pair of heels wrapped in one of our guest towels, a lipstick with the cap loose, and a gold chain knotted around a charger that fit a phone I had never seen before. I went cold so fast it felt clean. Rosa took a shaky step toward me. I thought maybe you left things in there, she said. Then this fell out. She held out a receipt with fingers that would not stop trembling. I took it. Starbucks, Terminal B, 2 drinks, 2 breakfast sandwiches, 3 days earlier. Below that was a hotel charge from a boutique place downtown. Downtown in our own city, dated last month. The same week Mark told me he had been stuck overnight in Cleveland because of weather. There had been no weather. I knew that before I even checked. Did you touch anything else? I asked. She shook her head hard. No, only the bag. I thought maybe I should put it back and not say anything, and then I saw there was an envelope, and it had your name on it. That pulled my attention in a different direction. What envelope? She pointed at the left nightstand drawer. Mark's drawer. He never let me use it. Said he kept old chargers, work cables, watch boxes in there. One more tiny stupid border I had stopped arguing about because marriage can train you to get tired in patterns. I opened it. Under 2 cords and a hotel pen sat a large manila envelope. My full name was written across the front in block letters. Not Abby. Not Babe. Not even Abigail, in the soft way a husband might write it. Abigail Hartwell Carter. Like I was a case file. I slid the papers out. The first page was a transfer form from one of our joint investment accounts. My signature was on it. Except it wasn't. It was a good imitation. Good enough at a glance. Wrong if you knew my hand. Wrong in the angle of the A. Wrong in the pressure. Wrong in the way the line beneath my last name dragged too far. There were more underneath. A request to remove me from one account. A draft power of attorney. A property note tied to an LLC I had never heard of. And clipped behind all of that was a consultation invoice from a family law office 20 minutes from our neighborhood. My hands didn't shake. That frightened me more than if they had. Rosa stared at the papers and whispered, "I thought it was cheating. Then I saw this." I kept turning pages. One of them had a yellow sticky note attached in Mark's handwriting. Need final signature before quarter close. If she resists. I used doctor records/emotional volatility angle. For a second, every sound in the room became too sharp, the dryer downstairs, the vacuum motor humming out in the hall. A truck reversing somewhere outside. The tiny click of Rose's teeth when she tried to stop herself from crying. "I didn't read more," she said quickly. "I swear I didn't. It's okay." And I meant it. Because something had changed inside me right then. Not healed, not settled, sharpened. My husband was not just sleeping with someone else. He was building an exit, quietly, carefully, with paperwork, with timing, with story. He wasn't preparing to leave a marriage. He was preparing to leave me inside a version of events I would not be able to escape. I sat on the edge of the bed and read everything again. The family law invoice mentioned asset protection strategy, pre-filing documentation, temporary occupancy rights. There was even a typed sheet of talking points, not legal language, human language. Words meant to be repeated in living rooms and over wine, and at school fundraisers and on concerned phone calls. Concern about her emotional state. Increasing instability over last year. Difficulty managing finances. Potential need for protective distance. He was building a wife-shaped disaster and planning to place me in it. Rosa sank onto the vanity stool and started crying again. 2 months ago, he told me if I ever found anything weird from his travel things, I should just put it back because you were under stress and could misunderstand things. I thought it was strange. I thought maybe rich people just talk like that when they fight. I'm sorry, I should have told you. Rich. That almost made me laugh. We weren't rich in the way people imagine. We were upper middle class polished, the cruel American version of comfortable. HOA newsletter, Peloton in the guest room, clear bins in the pantry, weekend at the lake every summer, retirement accounts, 2 cars, enough to look solid from the sidewalk, enough to steal from neatly. I put the papers on the bedspread and looked at Rosa. You are not the one who did this. Her shoulders shook harder. Will he say I stole? I have 2 boys. I can't lose this job. He won't get the chance. She looked at me like she wanted to believe that but didn't know yet who I was in this room. Honestly, neither did I, and I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. Everything, every page, every forged signature, the sticky note, the receipt, the blouse, the heels, the lipstick, the charger, the towel around the shoes, the open drawer, the bag in the closet, the clock on my phone screen, everything. Then I went to the linen closet, grabbed the blue nitrile gloves Mark used when he grilled ribs on the 4th of July, and started bagging items separately into zip bags from under the sink. Rosa watched me without moving, like she was seeing a second person step out from behind the first one. "Should I go?" she whispered. "No." I zipped one bag shut. "I need you to tell me exactly what happened from the beginning." So she did. She arrived at 11:20, vacuumed the downstairs office, dusted the living room, had cleaned the guest bath, started laundry, came upstairs just after noon, stripped the bed, a pillow fell. She bent to grab it, noticed the closet wasn't fully shut, went in because she thought one of Mark's suit bags had slipped, saw the carry-on, moved it to straighten a shoe. The side pocket opened, the receipt fell, then the envelope. I listened to every word. Then I asked the next question. "Did he ever bring anyone here?" She hesitated. That told me enough already. "Not in front of me," she said. "But once there was a wine glass in the upstairs office sink with lipstick on it. Not your color. I thought maybe from a party. And once the guest bed was turned down strange in the middle of the week when you were in Atlanta with your mom." I felt the cold hit in a different place that time. My mother's surgery week?" She nodded. I remembered that week immediately. The airport floor, the hospital coffee, the vending machine crackers, the notebook I carried full of doctor questions and insurance notes. Mark had sent flowers, posted a story with a praying hands emoji, told everyone how hard it was to see me carrying so much. I had thanked him for being supportive. Rosa looked toward the blouse in the evidence bag. "I think this woman came here." I looked around the room, the tufted headboard, the white duvet, the print above the dresser we bought during an argument and called a compromise. Every inch of the room felt contaminated. Not by sex, by planning. That was the part that hollowed me out. Cheating is ugly, planning is colder. I called the bank first, not the local branch, the fraud line. I sat on the bathroom floor with the door shut while I spoke to a woman named Denise, whose voice sounded like soft gravel and old competence. I told her I suspected forged transfer requests tied to a joint investment account. I needed a freeze placed on any non-routine outbound movement over a set amount. She asked security questions. I answered all of them. She put me on hold twice. During those holds, I stared at the marble tile beneath my knees and kept my voice level when she came back on. By the end of the call, she had flagged the account, documented suspected signature fraud, and told me to come into the branch with identification as soon as possible. Then I called our financial advisor's office and left a message calm enough to survive replay. Then I texted Mark, "Hope Denver's going well. Rosa found one of your chargers in the closet. Want me to leave it in your drawer?" 3 dots appeared almost immediately. "Yeah, thanks. Meetings all day. Land late Friday. Love you. Denver." I looked down at the downtown hotel receipt again. Then I screenshotted the text and emailed it to a new Gmail account I created in under 60 seconds sitting next to my own bathtub. By 2 o'clock, Rosa and I had built a timeline on yellow legal paper from the junk drawer in the kitchen. Every trip, every strange mood swing, every purchase that didn't make sense, every time he said I was sensitive, every time he said I was forgetting things, every time he said I wasn't myself lately. That phrase glowed now. Not concern, staging. I asked Rosa if she could remember dates she had seen anything odd. She remembered 2 clearly. As the week of Thanksgiving, and the Thursday before Christmas when traffic was terrible and she arrived an hour late and apologized the whole day for it. She was still apologizing while helping me reconstruct my own erasure. At 3:15, I drove to the bank. The neighborhood looked offensively normal. Kids' bikes on driveways, an American flag on one porch, a woman in leggings carrying Trader Joe's bags. The kind of bright suburban afternoon where betrayal should at least have the decency to arrive with thunder. Inside the bank, the air was too cold. A TV in the corner was playing financial news with the sound off. An older man in a veteran cap was arguing with a teller about a missing debit card. I met with a branch manager named Steven in an office with glass walls and fake bamboo. He reviewed the forms I had photographed, compared signatures on file, studied the transfer requests again. Then he leaned back slightly and said the careful sentence nobody ever wants to hear. These do raise serious concern. He printed 8 months of transaction history for the relevant accounts. And there it was. Small transfers to an LLC called Northline Domestic Holdings. Charges labeled travel admin. Hotel bookings in our own city. Jewelry stores I had never stepped inside. And one payment that made my eyes stop. A prenatal clinic. I stared at that line so long, Stephen gently cleared his throat. Would you like copies of everything we can provide today? Yes. He printed in silence. The machine hummed. A woman outside the office laughed too loudly at something a teller said. When he returned, he slid the stack across the desk and handed me a card for the bank's fraud department. I'd recommend speaking to an attorney before you alert the other account holder. Other account holder, not husband, just risk, just exposure, just potential litigation with nice teeth. From there, I went to the county clerk's office. I didn't plan that stop. I just knew movement felt safer than sitting still. The building smelled like old paper, floor polish, and tired air conditioning. A woman behind plexiglass checked public records while chewing mint gum and calling everyone hun. No transfer deed had been filed yet. But there was something else. A business registration. Northline Domestic Holdings, LLC, filed 6 months earlier. Registered agent, Mark Carter. Secondary mailing contact, Elise Benton. And I took a picture of the terminal screen, paid for a printed copy. And I still remember the case number because it landed in my head like metal. County Clerk, case number 2024-17823. Elise Benton. I sat in my car and said her name out loud 3 times until it stopped sounding like a stranger and started sounding like a direct threat. That night I ate crackers over the sink because the idea of dinner felt ridiculous. I texted Mark once more. You surviving? He sent back a selfie from what looked like a hotel bar. Jacket off, tie loose, smile warm in the way practiced men know works best on them. Barely. Big presentation tomorrow. Wish you were here. I enlarged the photo. A candle, a stemmed glass, half a woman's shoulder. I saved that too. Sleep didn't come in a normal way that night. It passed over me in strips. And around midnight, I got out of bed and walked the house barefoot. The hardwood felt cool. The silence felt arranged. I ended up in the upstairs office Mark mostly used when he worked from home, which usually meant 1 call, 2 emails, and 40 minutes of online shopping. The room looked clean. Too clean. I checked the trash. Nothing. Open drawers, office supplies, old conference badges, batteries, a spare mouse. Then I noticed the family photo on the credenza was slightly crooked. Behind it, tucked flat against the wall, was a slim black notebook. I opened it. Dates, hotel initials, amounts, shorthand. Enough to understand, not enough to excuse. One entry read, EB test/confirm before March. Another, a narrative with K+L seated. Another, move storage before lease. A was me. It had to be. A K&L took me a second. Then it clicked. Karen, Lisa, 2 women from our neighborhood wine group who had, over the last few months, started giving me those tilted little sympathetic looks women give when they think they know your private life and are proud of themselves for being discreet. I sat on the office floor with that notebook open in my lap and saw the whole shape of him. He had not only cheated, he had preloaded the room. He had built the audience before he built the announcement. That was always his real skill, not charm, curation. Mark could show up to a barbecue in a navy quarter zip, carry a paper plate for someone's mother, flip burgers, ask another man about his golf game, and by sunset half the block would call him solid. I used to admire that. When we met, I was 24 and finishing grad school. He was 33, already polished, already fluent in certainty. He told me I made him feel calm, Told my friends I was brilliant. Brought soup when I had strep. Sent flowers to my office on our first anniversary because he knew public romance looked especially good in open-plan spaces. Everything in the beginning had the texture of being chosen. I didn't realize how often his generosity required witnesses. The first real fracture came after we married. Small things. He wanted to simplify our finances by handling them. Said my schedule was too full. Said I worried too much. When I asked direct questions, he answered in broad strokes and then kissed my forehead like I was a child doing her best. If I got upset, he softened. If I softened, he became practical. If I became practical, he got tired. A marriage can become a DMV line of emotional labor, long, airless. You keep holding your number because you think your turn will come and someone will finally help. Then one day you realize the window closed a long time ago, and you're still standing there, making excuses for the building. By Friday morning, I had done 3 things. I met with a family attorney named Jenna Ruiz. I changed every password tied to my name that I could reach. And I copied the footage from our exterior cameras onto an encrypted drive. Jenna was younger than I expected and sharper than a blade in a silk blouse. She read the forged documents, reviewed the account records, looked through the screenshots, and did not waste a second on soft comfort language. You need to stop thinking about catching him emotionally, she told me. You already caught him strategically. That matters more. She advised me not to confront him until we secured more documentation. Preserve everything, avoid tipping him off, move a legally permitted amount of personal funds into a separate account. And then she gave me the sentence that changed the rhythm of the next 2 weeks. No angry texts, no dramatic calls, no scene. Be boring, boring wins. I wrote that down. Boring wins. When Mark came home Saturday night, I was making pasta. Of course I was. Steam on the windows, garlic and olive oil, the meal of domestic peace. The exact kind of kitchen scene a man like Mark would read as proof his structure was still holding. He kissed my cheek, dropped his suitcase by the mudroom bench, held up a gift bag. Yeah, brought you something. Inside was an airport candle and a box of chocolate-covered almonds. The shirt on his back carried a scent that was not his cologne. Too floral, too bright. You look tired, he said. So do you. He laughed softly. Long week. At dinner, he told me about a client named Brett, who did not exist, a steakhouse in Denver that had closed the year before, and a turbulent story that landed 2 seconds too neatly. I nodded, passed the parmesan, asked the right follow-up questions. He never looked nervous. That was almost the worst part. Not the cheating, not the forged papers, the confidence, the fact that betrayal had become muscle memory in him. That night, in bed, he rested one hand lightly on my waist. Not intimacy. Access check. I said I had cramps. Yet he rolled away with a sigh designed to sound patient. And in the dark, I stared at the ceiling and thought, some people do not leave your life all at once. They redecorate the crime scene while still living in it. The next week taught me how deep it went. I found the second phone first, not hidden well, hidden often. It was in an old shoebox in the garage storage cabinet behind Christmas lights and a broken pool skimmer, cheap case, passcode protected. But the charger matched the one from the carry-on, and Jenna knew a forensic tech who handled civil evidence. By Tuesday afternoon, the contents had been mirrored and preserved, hundreds of messages. Elise Benton was real. So was another woman before her, and maybe another after that. But Elise was the active one. That their messages were not romantic in the cinematic way people expect. They were logistical. That made them uglier. Plans, complaints, money, timing. References to me as A. References to the clinic. References to the apartment. Notes about waiting until the account issue was settled. Then I found the line that changed the floor beneath everything again. She still doesn't know the pregnancy thing was for leverage, not because we needed it. Relax. I read it 5 times. Then I opened the image attached below it. A positive pregnancy test on a marble vanity. Caption from Elise. Worth the drama if it speeds him up. My hand shook then. Not from heartbreak. From contempt so strong it felt chemical. There was more. He coached her on when to call, when not to call, what to post online, which friends of his were useful. He told her I was fragile, clingy. One hard conversation from spiraling. He told at least 2 people in our wider circle that we were quietly working through some things, and he was trying to protect my privacy. Privacy. Beautiful word in decent hands. A locked basement in the wrong ones. Rosa became my witness in the cleanest way possible. She did not spy. She remembered. The Thursday Mark asked her to skip the guest room because he was on a work call. The blonde hair tie on the upstairs bathroom counter. The towel with foundation stains darker than my shade. She remembered because women like Rosa have to remember everything in other people's houses to survive those jobs well. One afternoon, while folding towels at my dining table, she looked down and said, "I never thought about it like this. I just noticed things. And I didn't connect them." "Neither did I said. That was true. Once you start connecting, married life starts to look like a receipt you almost threw away. So many ordinary lines, paper towels, soap, bread, batteries. Then one item you didn't see before changes the whole trip. Jenna filed protective notices. We documented the forgeries. A forensic accountant confirmed Mark had been routing money through the LLC in amounts small enough not to trip alarms. He wasn't brilliant, he was counting on my trust. I made one stop Jenna never suggested, the prenatal clinic. I didn't walk in screaming. I sat in the parking lot first and watched women come and go with paperwork, purses, water bottles, ordinary fear. And then I went inside and calmly told the office manager I believed someone had attempted to use insurance information connected to my marriage fraudulently. That got attention. They couldn't give me everything, privacy laws, verification limits, but they gave me enough. Enough to understand the pregnancy scare had been part theater, part leverage, maybe part future trap. Driving home, I stopped at a school crosswalk for a line of children in bright backpacks. One little girl dropped her lunchbox. Another kid picked it up for her without being asked. And for some reason, that nearly made me cry more than anything else. Because simple goodness still existed. It just did not live in my marriage. The deeper humiliation arrived through Karen. Wednesday night. I was sorting documents at the kitchen island when my phone rang. "Yay, hey," she said in that careful, concerned tone women use when they want credit for being kind. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Why?" "Oh, Mark just mentioned you'd been having a hard time lately. I only wanted to check in." I let a beat pass. That was nice of him. "Yes," she rushed on. "He said you seemed really overwhelmed. Like maybe all the fertility stress and work burnout and everything." I don't have fertility issues. We had barely even started trying because Mark always had a reason to delay. Wrong quarter, too much travel, bad timing. So there it was. He wasn't just leaving. He was drafting my biography. Without me. I thanked Karen, hung up, added one more note to the folder Jenna had labeled narrative seeding. By then I was living in 2 marriages at once. The visible one and the true one. In the visible one, I asked Mark how his day was. Texted him photos of the basil plant on the kitchen window. Reminded him about a dental appointment. Sent a joke about the robotic vacuum getting stuck under the console table again. He replied with hearts and tired emojis, and one late-night photo from the back of an Uber captioned, "Miss you." In the true one, I was building a wall he would not see until he hit it. I met with our mortgage lender and learned he had already made preliminary inquiries about refinancing without me. I checked our homeowner's portal and found he had altered notification settings, so some property tax emails stopped landing in my inbox. I pulled files from our shared cloud and discovered scanned copies of an old counseling intake form from 2 years earlier after my father died. Yet he had stored them in a folder labeled personal. Personal. Like grief was a tool in a drawer. One evening, While he showered downstairs in the guest bath because the primary drain was acting weird, I used his college mascot and his mother's birthday to get into his laptop. Third try. Men like Mark love complexity until ego makes them lazy. Inside were drafts to a realtor, a budget sheet labeled Transition, and one document titled Post-Separation Messaging. I opened it. I tried everything. I'm keeping this private for her dignity. Please respect that some stories have two sides. I hope people won't speculate about her health. It was polished, measured, practically noble, a villain with baked brie. I sent the file to Jenna, then sat at the edge of the bathtub until I heard the shower shut off. So, when Mark stepped out in a towel and saw me, he smiled the same smile that disarmed me years earlier on a rooftop bar in Chicago. "What are you doing up?" he asked. "Just tired?" He touched the side of my face. "You've seemed off lately." There it was. Live. The script in motion. I looked at him and almost admired the commitment. "I'm okay." He kissed my forehead, told me to get some sleep. That night I booked a notary for the next morning and signed affidavits documenting the discovery timeline, the evidence handling, the chain of custody. Jenna kept using that phrase. Chain of custody. Clean steps. That mattered to me more than I expected, because what he had done was dirty in the deepest way, not sexual, structural. He had tried to put dirt on my name before stepping away from his own footprints. So every clean move I made felt like a refusal. By early March, we had enough bank records, enough screenshots, enough public filings, enough messages, enough proof that Elise had been in my house while I was away caring for my mother. Enough proof that he had moved money, prepared false narratives, tested legal angles, and laid groundwork with friends. Enough to ruin the clean exit he thought he had already earned. Jenna asked me where I wanted the confrontation. "At home?" she asked. "At his office? Through counsel only?" I didn't need time to think. Neither. Mark's firm hosted an annual spring donor dinner for a local arts foundation. A polished little civic circus, spouses included, speeches, auction tables, white wine, string lights, handshakes. Said he had been talking about it for weeks because he was being recognized for community leadership. I told Jenna I wanted everything to happen inside the same window: legal service, financial restrictions, exposure to Elise, exposure to family, exposure to the audience he had been warming up for months. Not a public scream, a collapse of sequence. Jenna looked at me for a long second, then nodded. "Precision," she said. "No improvising. No improvising." We took 10 days to build it. Filing package ready, fraud complaint ready, separate account active, house codes prepared for change, garage remotes ready for deactivation, cloud backup secured, process server arranged, private investigator confirming Elise's apartment occupancy. And I also sent one message from Mark's second phone while he was in a meeting and had left it charging in the garage. "Need to pause. Timing changed. Don't contact House or Rosa again." She replied within 3 minutes. "Wasn't planning to." She already looked at me weird at Target. "Are you sure wife hasn't figured it out?" So they had crossed in public too. Of course they had. Of course parts of my marriage had unfolded under fluorescent retail lighting while I pushed a cart somewhere nearby without knowing. I didn't answer. The night before the donor dinner, Mark stood in our closet adjusting his tux and asked which earrings I was planning to wear. "The diamond drops." "Good," he said, smiling at me in the mirror. "You always look incredible at these things." These things: performance, proof, brand maintenance with appetizers. Shen, I met his eyes in the glass. "Do I?" He came up behind me and rested both hands on my shoulders. "You know you do." His hands felt like someone else's property already. I didn't move away, didn't lean in. Just watched our reflections and understood something final. Some marriages don't end with paperwork. They end the first time one person decides the other is material. The donor dinner was held in a renovated warehouse downtown. Exposed brick, string lights, valet parking, a jazz trio near the bar. Women in satin dresses laughing with one shoulder angled forward. Men discussing schools, taxes, flights, market volatility. The air smelled like citrus peel, expensive perfume, and seared meat from the catering line. Mark was radiant. That was the word. Radiant. He guided me by the elbow and introduced me to a councilman's wife, kissed my temple in full view of a cluster of donors, murmured, "Proud of you tonight." I looked up at him and smiled. That was the last gift I gave him. At 7:12 p.m., Jenna's process server delivered the filing packet to Elise at the apartment Mark had been helping pay for. At 7:15, Mark's access to our joint investment accounts was restricted pending fraud review. At 7:18, I emailed selected screenshots, the LLC filing, and one short note to Mark's sister, his mother, Karen Lisa, and two board members' spouses. I'm sharing this before false narratives spread further. Legal counsel has advised me to document transparently. Please do not contact me tonight unless necessary. At 7:20, Rosa received written assurance from Jenna's office that she was a witness, not a target, and that any retaliation would be documented immediately. At 7:23, Jenna emailed Mark's corporate counsel and his personal email with notice of representation, fraud allegations, and preservation demands. At 7:25, I deactivated his garage remotes. At 7:27, I stepped away from the auction table and into the ladies' lounge. Soft lighting, mirrors built to flatter. The kind of room where women fix lipstick and marriages quietly rot nearby. I checked my phone. The first tremor had already begun. 3 missed calls from Mark's mother, 1 from Karen, 1 from a number saved as Elise. Then Mark appeared in the doorway. "Abigail," he said too quietly, "what did you do?" He was still smiling with the lower half of his face. Hadn't fully switched masks yet. I stood from the velvet bench and smoothed my dress. "Git," I corrected the timing. His jaw tightened. "We need to go." "No." His eyes sharpened. "What are you talking about?" I looked at him for one full second. The forged signatures, the LLC, the second phone, the apartment, the fake pregnancy leverage, the counseling records you stored, the narrative you seeded about me being unstable, the transfer plan. Strange place to discover consequences, I know. The color left his face in thin layers. He glanced around the room even though we were alone. "Lower your voice." I almost laughed. "I haven't raised it." He stepped closer. "You're confused." There it was, the first line, right on schedule. "No," I said. "That line has expired." His mouth tightened. "Whatever you think you found." "Yeah, you're misunderstanding context." County Clerk Case number 2024-17823 doesn't leave much room for context. Neither do your texts. His eyes changed then, not guilt. Calculation. He was measuring whether denial still had value. "Who gave you access to my private devices?" "Your own arrogance." "Abigail." "No." I took one step back, clear, small, enough. "You don't get my first name in that tone anymore." He looked at the phone in my hand. "Did you send things to people?" "Yes." His nostrils flared. "You are making a massive mistake. That sentence belongs to you." He dropped his voice even lower. That old controlled warmth, now with teeth under it. "You want to embarrass me? Fine. We can talk at home. But if you involve my work and spread half-understood accusations, you will regret it." A year earlier. That might have frightened me. That night it just clarified him further. I already involved my attorney. The fear arrived then. Small, real, uninvited. I saw it, and it was almost beautiful. "Attorney?" he repeated. "Yes." He looked toward the ballroom. I could hear applause beginning for the next segment of the program. "Abby, listen to me," he said, switching again. "This is messy, but it's not what you think. Elise was a distraction. A mistake. The account movements were temporary. I was trying to protect us. I said nothing. Talk to me, he pressed. Say something. So I did. You brought another woman into my house while I was caring for my mother after surgery. You used my insurance information for leverage theater. You forged my name. You built a story that I was unstable so you could leave cleanly. But that is not messy. That is design. He looked like he wanted to grab my arm, then remembered where we were. Outside the lounge, applause rose again. Someone was announcing his name. I tilted my head toward the ballroom. You should go. They're ready to honor your leadership. He stared at me like I had become a language he no longer spoke. Then his phone began vibrating in his pocket, once, twice, again. He pulled it out. His eyes moved over the screen. Mother, sister, board member, Elise. When he looked up again, the hatred on his face was so sudden and so clean it almost felt honest. There he was. Not the curated version, the core version. You did this to yourself, he said. I smiled once. Not warm, not cruel, just clear. No. I found what you did. Then I scheduled the ending. And I walked past him. On back into the ballroom, back into the lights and glassware and donor chatter and civic vanity. I sat at our table, lifted my water glass, waited. Mark stayed gone a full minute longer than he should have. Long enough for whispers to begin. Long enough for one board member's wife to look down at her phone, then up toward the doors with that exact expression people wear when handsome wallpaper starts peeling. When he finally returned, he looked altered. Not ruined, not yet, unanchored. But he still went to the podium when called because men like Mark trust performance long after collapse has already started. He thanked the foundation, the city, his team, then, my incredible wife, Abigail. Several heads turned toward me. I took a sip of water. Halfway through his remarks, his phone buzzed on the podium. He ignored it. It buzzed again. Someone in the front row smirked. His hand shook just enough on the microphone stem to catch the light. He finished to polite applause. Polite. That very American form of punishment. By the time we reached the valet line, his mother had sent 6 messages. His sister, 3. Karen had written, I had no idea. Lisa had written only one word. Wow. Then my phone lit up again. Unknown number. A text. Did he tell you I was pregnant? I'm not. He pushed that because he said it would force decisions. I'm not protecting him. Elise. I forwarded the message straight to Jenna. No reply. The drive home was quiet except for traffic and the turn signal ticking at one long red light. Mark gripped the wheel so hard his knuckles blanched. Finally, he said, You thought you could have handled this privately. I looked out at a gas station glowing beside a CVS and felt almost detached from how normal the city still looked. You were never handling it privately, I said. You were handling it strategically. He slammed the heel of his hand against the steering wheel. You ruined everything. No, I interrupted your version. When we pulled into the driveway, the garage did not open. He clicked the remote once, twice, 3 times, then turned to me slowly. You locked me out? Of the garage, of certain accounts, of easy exits. Yes. He laughed once, sharp, ugly. This is insane. That word is off limits for you now. Inside, he followed me into the kitchen while I set down my bag and slipped off my heels. At the robotic vacuum sat docked silently against the wall like a witness after hours. The house smelled faintly of lemon and cold stone. Where am I supposed to sleep? He asked. Not in our room. You can't decide that. I already did. He started toward the stairs. Mark. I did not raise my voice. If you walk into that bedroom tonight, I call the sheriff and report the forged financial documents immediately instead of tomorrow morning through counsel. Choose carefully. He stopped, and that was the moment I felt power come back, not like fire, like blood, quiet, necessary. Finally reaching a numb limb again, he turned and looked at me from the bottom of the stairs. You think people will side with you? I held his eyes. People are the least interesting part of this. And it was true, exposure mattered. Oh, but the real win had happened days earlier on a bathroom floor, on hold with a fraud department, choosing sequence over collapse. He slept in the guest room that night. At 6:10 the next morning, before he woke up, I met the locksmith. By 9, Jenna had filed additional notices. By 10:30, Mark's mother had left me a voicemail crying, apologizing, then drifting halfway into excuse language before stopping herself. By noon, his firm placed him on administrative leave, pending review of personal conduct issues affecting governance. By 3, Elise had sent a written statement through her own attorney claiming Mark had misled her about the state of our marriage, encouraged the fake pregnancy implication, paid portions of her rent, and promised a clean transition once assets were secured. I did not feel sorry for her. But I kept the statement. Evidence does not have to be likable. The next week was paperwork, silence, and the steady dismantling of myth. Mark tried every door. First denial, then apology, then anger, then nostalgia, then threat, then exhaustion dressed up as peace. Can we please talk like adults? You're making this uglier than it needs to be. I made mistakes, but you're punishing me beyond reason. We both know our marriage has been strained. I was trying to find the least destructive path. Least destructive for whom? I answered only through Jenna when necessary. The neighborhood adjusted. In suburbia, scandal travels through hydrangeas. A woman walking her doodle slows down near your mailbox. A husband who used to clap your spouse on the back avoids eye contact at the HOA meeting. 2 houses down? But the same dog kept barking every afternoon like nothing in the world had changed. Maybe for him it hadn't. Karen dropped off a casserole I did not eat. Lisa sent a long apology for ever buying into hints. I appreciated the shame more than the wording. Rosa came every Thursday as usual. That mattered to me. Continuity is its own kind of dignity. Some mornings we folded towels together and talked about gas prices, school registration, the price of berries, ordinary human things. Other times, she would stop in the middle of stacking washcloths and say quietly, "I still feel bad." And I would say the same thing every time. You made the call. Because she had. She heard fear in herself and still reached for the right person before self-protection could silence her. That call, ragged and half-spoken, sounded like disaster. But it was actually the first honest thing in my marriage in months. There were hard days. One came when I boxed Mark's clothes for temporary exchange and found the old baseball t-shirt he wore the weekend we first painted the kitchen. One came when I saw a father lifting a toddler into a shopping cart and felt, for a second, the phantom future I had almost built with him. One came when I got my hair cut and the stylist asked whether I had any fun spring travel planned. Normalcy has terrible timing, but grief without confusion is cleaner. That was the difference. I no longer stayed awake asking if I had overreacted, if I needed to communicate better, if I had become too sensitive, if I had failed at marriage in some invisible feminine way. He wanted that fog. He had been laying it down for months. Now the floor was visible. And during mediation prep, Jenna asked me what mattered most beyond the money and the property protections. I answered before I even thought about it. I want him unable to tell my story for me. She nodded like that was one of the most reasonable things she had heard all week. Maybe it was. Because money matters. Property matters. Reputation matters. But being edited out of your own reality is a different kind of violence. No bruise, no blood, just erosion. He had nearly done that to me. Not completely, but enough that even now there are mornings when I have to check whether my calm belongs to me or is just the shape I built to survive him. Healing is not cinematic, it's repetitive, it's boring. Change the lock, sign the form, return the email, cancel the shared membership. Stand in the kitchen and realize the silence belongs to you now. Spring turned warmer. The lemon tree in the backyard, the one Mark always said wouldn't make it, put out new leaves. I carried the robotic vacuum upstairs myself one morning and let it hum down the hallway while sunlight cut across the floor. This time, it did not sound like emptiness. It sounded like maintenance, care, ordinary things continuing without him. A month later, the first formal hearing date was set. Mark arrived in a navy suit that used to make him look trustworthy. He kept trying to catch my eye in the courthouse hallway. I didn't give it to him. The building smelled like paper, stale coffee, and old patience. A deputy leaned against the wall outside courtroom B. Someone farther down was arguing about probate. A baby cried once, then settled. Is America runs on fluorescent lights and consequences? Inside the conference room, when the financial records were laid out and the forged signature concern was stated plainly, Mark did something I had expected and still found astonishing. He looked at me and said, "You know I never meant to hurt you." As if intent could be retrofitted afterward. As if architecture could apologize for collapse. I held his eyes for exactly 1 second. "You built a life raft," I said, and tried to strap me under it. Jenna didn't smile. She didn't need to. I felt her approval like a small, steady hand at my back. That day ended without resolution. But it ended with direction, the kind that doesn't reverse. Afterward, I drove through Starbucks and bought the most overpriced iced drink on the menu simply because I could. When I sat in the parking lot with condensation on my hand and watched people come and go carrying pharmacy bags, dry cleaning, soccer snacks, all of them dragging some invisible weight I knew nothing about. That made me gentler. Not weaker, gentler, because betrayal strips the glamour off other people too. You stop assuming polished means peaceful. You stop envying wide windows and holiday cards and men who grill in clean sneakers on the 4th of July. You understand that some houses are museums of denial with excellent lighting. Summer came. The neighborhood pool opened. Kids screamed in the afternoons. Someone 3 streets over started practicing drums badly with the windows open. I repainted the upstairs office and turned it into my workspace. I sold the print over our dresser and left the wall blank. Blank was honest. One afternoon, Rosa stood in the doorway of the office and looked around slowly. "It feels different." "It is," she smiled carefully. "Good different." I looked at the desk, the plant in the window, the shelves, the absence of hidden notebooks and false narratives in sealed little side drawers. "Yes," I said, "good different." People like to imagine revenge as something loud, a thrown glass, a screaming lawn scene, a social media detonation. But quiet revenge has a different pulse. It feels like refusing to warn the person who has been digging under your foundation. It feels like reading before reacting. It feels like choosing records over rage. It feels like letting a liar arrive at the trap of his own paperwork. The dramatic version would have been easier to explain. Throw his suitcase outside. Smash the second phone. Post everything in a single midnight burst. But Spectacle burns hot and fast. He was counting on Spectacle. He wanted me frayed, hysterical, easy to dismiss, a woman in pain. So I became something worse for him, a woman in sequence. That was the part he never planned for. Months from now, what I may remember most will not be the donor dinner, or the look on his face in that lounge, or even the first sight of those forged papers with my name typed across the top like an obituary. It may be that phone call. My husband was away when the cleaner called me, barely able to speak. I answered thinking something terrible had happened inside my house. I was right, just not in the way I first imagined. The terrible thing wasn't the blouse or the lipstick. Or even the other woman waiting at the edge of my life like a replacement appliance. The terrible thing was the blueprint, the coldness, the way he had mistaken my trust for empty space. And the beautiful thing, if there was one, was this. He started planning my removal inside a house built on appearances. A frightened woman with lemon on her hands and tears in her voice broke the seal, and I walked out with my name intact.